My name is Chris Utter. I am a professor in the Department of Government at American University. I'm also the Associate Director of our Lincoln Scholars Program, which is a core text program there. And the course that I am teaching for Hertog this time around is on Dante's Divine Comedy. This course will take place over 6 weeks. We're going to devote 2 weeks to each book of the Divine Comedy, 2 weeks to Inferno, 2 weeks to Purgatorio, and 2 weeks to Paradiso. And it will take place in March, beginning on Tuesday, March 3rd. We'll meet in the evening, 6 to 8 p.m. On Tuesdays Eastern Time. This will be a seminar style discussion, meaning that I'm not going to lecture. I might give some context to my opening question, but I really want this to be a conversation that's driven by you all. So the kind of student who will thrive in this is one who really wants to learn from Dante, who wants to learn from the Divine Comedy in such a way that he or she takes an active role in questioning this text, in trying to figure out what Dante is saying, learning more, as I said, from him than from me. I think we can learn the most from Dante in this format of discussion, where we are questioning the text, really as equals. You know, I've read this a few times before, but I'm perhaps just more of an advanced student than everyone else in the class. So if you're a self-directed kind of learner, if you want to take ownership of your own education and question Dante yourself, then you'll do very well in this course. Dante was a Florentine poet and philosopher. He lived from 1265 to 1321, and he really is regarded as the central figure of Italian medieval early Renaissance arts and letters. He is to Italy at least what Shakespeare is to England, and probably even more. He's that central to Italian arts and letters. But even more than that, and this really goes into why I think it's important to for us to read Dante, and the kind of, well, the central question that I want us to focus on in our reading, which is that this is a kind of Christian epic poem. That's really what Dante's ambition is here. He puts himself in the company of people like Homer and Virgil. Virgil is his guide through the first two realms, through Inferno and Purgatorio. But he incorporates elements of classical mythology. So we encounter the three-headed dog Cerberus, for example. And so really, this work is a combination of, in various interesting ways, a combination of the two components of the Western world, of the Bible and classical poetry and philosophy. And so if we're interested, as we should be, right, in figuring out how these two threads work together, how these two aspects of the West either harmonize or are in tension with each other, there's really there are few better guides than Dante. So that's really the core of the significance, and really the question that I want us to ponder throughout reading this work. Why is it that Dante has chosen to combine these two elements? Why is Virgil his guide, this classical poet, the author of the Aeneid? And why does he put himself in the company of these pre-Christian poets? One of the core kind of puzzles that I want us to at least confront, even if we can't quite answer it to our satisfaction. Right. So this is a Christian epic. It is, at least in a sense, a kind of synthesis of the two traditions of the West. Of Athens and Jerusalem, as we could say, the Greek tradition stemming from Homer explicitly in the fourth canto of Inferno, that Homer is singled out as the prince of poets, but also Aristotle is singled out as the master of those who know, the greatest philosopher. Right. So we have Athens, we could say, on the one hand, but also Jerusalem. This is a journey through hell, purgatory, and paradise, and heaven, and so it's put in both a Christian and classical context. So this is a mystery. Why is it that Dante frames this epic in this way? But also, right, why is it an epic? I think we also have to look at how the poem begins, and I'm just going to read the first few lines of the first canto of Inferno, and this is the Robin Kirkpatrick translation, by the way. Dante begins, "At one point midway on our path in life, I came around and found myself now searching through a dark wood, the right way blurred and lost. How hard it is to say what that wood was, a wilderness, savage, brute, harsh, and wild. Only to think of it renews my fear." So I think it's significant that he says our path on life. So he is inviting us to think of the dark wood that he finds himself in as something that we could all find ourselves in, but it's not entirely clear what this crisis is, what this dark wood is that sets him on this journey with Virgil and later Beatrice as his guides. It could be a crisis of faith. I think there is some evidence for that, but it's not explicit. In this first canto, at the very beginning, he meets three animals. Dante meets a leopard, a lion, and a wolf. These seem allegorical, and later on it's made fairly explicit that the wolf is somehow a symbol for avarice, for greed. And he singles out the wolf as particularly pernicious, particularly dangerous. This is a theme that I think we should trace throughout all three of the books. Why is it that avarice is particularly dangerous? Is he singling this out as particularly dangerous for all of us, for human beings, for him, maybe for Florence, maybe all three? But yes, I think this might be a clue as to his goal in this epic, in confronting especially avarice. The theme of avarice comes up later on in Purgatory when Dante meets the Roman poet Statius, who lived after the birth of Christ, but wasn't explicitly a Christian. Dante reveals that he was a kind of hidden, a crypto Christian who is in purgatory in part because he didn't make open his conversion to Christianity. But his particular sin is not avarice. He's among the people in purgatory who are Christians, but who are particularly tempted by this sin of avarice. His sin is related to it. It's profligacy. So he was too easy with his spending, with his money. But yes, why is it that this particular sin is singled out? That's another question that I want us to, another thread that I think we can trace to figure out the core concern that Dante has in this epic. Well, I think one common aspect to many texts that I would call great books are that you don't really have to know very much about the history in order to get a lot from them. Dante does, however, include many contemporary Florentine figures and figures more broadly from his contemporary society, and he gives us enough to be able to know, or at least begin to figure out why he has focused on these figures. There are two figures in particular when Dante is talking about the circle of hell devoted to lust and love, two figures who commit suicide because they are too much in love with each other, and I think that we can infer from the from what Dante tells us what their sin was, and the kind of social and political context that gave rise to this sin. So I don't really think that we need that much background knowledge in order to follow to follow his choice of including some contemporary figures. The other thing is that if we were to read a history of Florence in the 14th centuries, a lot of that would be derived from Dante himself, or at least some of it. So what better than to go to the source itself? I think Dante is making a continuous argument throughout, and that's one of the reasons why I wanted us to read all three of these works. A lot of people read Inferno. It is in many ways the most exciting of the three, maybe, but I think it is a work as a whole. It is the three works are the Divine Comedy, and so yes, I think he is making an argument. I think that he is one of the reasons why he is putting the two parts of the Western tradition into conversation with each other, the biblical tradition and the tradition of classical Greek poetry and philosophy, is he is raising this question of whether it is possible to harmonize these two traditions. And I think one way of thinking that through is whether the tradition that maybe is encapsulated by the master of those who know, right, Aristotle, the tradition of Greek philosophy, is ultimately is able to be harmonized with the biblical tradition. That's at least the question that he raises throughout. And I don't have a settled opinion as to whether he does answer this question by the end, but he at least invites us to raise that question, whether one of these sides of the Western tradition, Athens or Jerusalem, ultimately is victorious, or whether it really is the kind of tension between the two that provides a certain kind of vitality to our understanding of these two components of the West. Well, no, I don't think I do wonder if we if we can see in a modern sense, contemporary sense, um, some comedy in that way. No, but it's a comedy in the sense that that it has a happy ending, right? That we ultimately arrive in paradise and at a resolution to this a way. I'll say we arrive at a way through this dark wood that Dante finds himself in at the beginning. It's not a tragedy. In a certain way, I always go back to the description that Dante gives of the virtuous heathens in limbo. Right there is no resolution. There is no comedy. in limbo for those who uh, either were born before Christ or who didn't know him, even having been born afterward. People who are in limbo, like Averroes, Dante names, and Saladin, interestingly, right? So it's an interesting question why there are people who knew of the existence of Christianity, but nevertheless rejected it, but who are included among the virtuous heathens in limbo. But their life, it's a question. Is it tragic? Not necessarily, but it's not joyful. It's not a comedy. They may still reside in a dark wood, but Dante gives us to understand that their wood is full of light. Their little piece of the inferno is actually a bright spot, even if it's not included in the infinitely brighter light of paradise. Inferno, hell, we could call it, is the place for people who either didn't know Christ or rejected him actively in some way, through prioritizing themselves through sin, or simply not knowing him. There is a place, very unfortunately, right in Inferno for unbaptized infants, for example. Purgatory is the place for those. I mentioned Statius as an example, this Roman poet that Dante singles out, is a place uh, for people who are Christians, but who have not, even if they have not rejected Christ, they have not fully embraced him. And paradise is for people like Dante's Beatrice, his guide, who have fully embraced him. People like Mary, for example, too. So it is paradise is a place of perfect harmony where everyone we might say sings as part of the heavenly chorus, sings the same tune. That I think is a way of thinking about the distinction among the three. No, not at all. Is this only for Christians? I think that this book, as Dante suggests at the beginning, is for everyone. It's a book for anyone who could potentially find themselves in a dark wood, and I think that this dark wood is not necessarily one of a kind of crisis of Christian faith. Um, this is really a book about finding out, as you know, I think most great books are finding out what our life is supposed to be. And one possibility is a Christian life, but another possibility, or the various other possibilities, are those lived by the other people that Dante encounters through his journey through Inferno, but also through Purgatory as well. And so, yes, it's a way of. I think it's a meditation on what it means to live a good life, really. And yes, so living a Christian life is only one of the possibilities that Dante explores here. Well, Beatrice was a girl that Dante met when when she was very young. He was somewhat older, and his love for her became really the touchstone of his life. She died very young, and she really became his guide in writing this. I think she and Virgil, but both of them, I think, are kind of twinned in this. She is his guide through paradise. I think it would be wrong to call her his muse exactly, because she's not a divinity. She is a kind of a touchstone of perfect Christian charity. That might be another way of thinking about her, or her role for him. But I think it's also helpful to remember that she is his guide through paradise, just as Virgil is his guide through Inferno and Purgatorio, right? So they are twins in some sense. That's another way of thinking about thinking through the fact that this is not a book simply for Christians. You know, two-thirds of it has a pagan philosopher poet as a guide, right? It's a very good question. Why Virgil is his guide, and I want to read a passage from the fourth canto of Inferno, which is the canto where the virtuous pagans, virtuous heathens, live. Now, if you look at this, I'll just mention is around line 79. Um, let's see. Let's see where to begin actually. So here's how Dante describes the poets that he encounters. I saw there came four noble shades, no sorrow in their countenance, nor joy. My teacher, that good man, began to speak, that is to say, Virgil. Look on, behold the one who sword in hand precedes as their true lord the other three. This is that sovereign Homer, poet. Horace, the satirist, is next to come. Ovid is third. Then see, there is Lucan. And then a little bit later on, Dante says the following, and greater honor still they paid me now, Dante. They summoned me to join them in their ranks. I came and walked as sixth among such wisdom. So we went to reach the dome of light and spoke of things which proper where I was are relegated rightly here to silence. So he doesn't tell us what he talked about in the company of these pagan poets. So I do wonder if Dante is somehow torn between the teachings of these pagan poets and the teachings of Christ. It's very interesting. Uh, I am constantly reminded when reading Dante of Augustine's reflection on Virgil himself. In Augustine's Confessions, he speaks with kind of contempt for himself, I think, as a boy, how much joy he had reading the Aeneid, reading Virgil, and how he thinks that he talks about how much more important it was to learn the Latin language and possibly Greek too, than it was to learn Virgil or Homer, and these monstrous stories that these poets tell, right? So he rejects out of hand the Aeneid, or at least he seems to, the Aeneid and the Iliad and the Odyssey. Whereas here we find Dante embracing these very works. So does this mean that Dante sees something that Augustine doesn't in Virgil and in Homer? I wonder. So I wonder if he is somehow torn, if that's the reason why Virgil is his guide through Inferno and Purgatorio, whereas Beatrice is his guide through Paradiso. If there is a kind of tension that he sees between the classical world and the Christian world. That's a good question. I'm not sure if I have a settled opinion about the particular form, at least in terms of the rhyme scheme. I do wonder. I think it's significant that this is a poem, and I mentioned it's pretty clearly an epic poem that is modeled in many ways on Virgil, but also on Homer, perhaps too. He uses it throughout. Dante uses the same sort of simile that Homer originated, it seems, but also Virgil takes up, and many other people as well. It seems like Dante is restoring, in a way, the tradition of epic poetry that seemed to be rendered unnecessary by the advent of Christianity. Why do we need these poets who, as Hesiod puts it, tell lies like the truth? Right? We have the truth in the form of the Bible. Right? Why would we need epic poetry anymore? But it seems like Dante thinks that we do still need epic poetry. Now, right. So, in terms of the elements of epic poetry that he incorporates, one is these similes that we see, famously in Homer and in Virgil. There is also the rhyme scheme, but there are other aspects of this too. The fact that there are exactly 100 cantos. There are 33 in each of the second two books. There are 33 in Purgatorio and 33 in Paradiso. There are 34 in Inferno. Does that mean that the first canto, for example, doesn't count? Maybe it's a kind of introduction, but I do wonder. 33, of course, might have something to do with the Trinity, but I'm not sure. It does seem like he wants us to take note of the numerology of this as well, and I'm not sure of the significance. I hope maybe we can uncover that together. Yeah. I first encountered it as an undergraduate student at St. John's College. I went to the Annapolis campus. I returned to it in grad school at Georgetown in the context of a reading group, where I first encountered the possibility that Dante is really a kind of political philosopher, that he really is interested in the the possible tensions between Christianity and especially classical political philosophy. And this is, as I've reread Dante, I have become more and more persuaded that that is part of his intention. Right, there are many excellent translations. I think the one that, for our purposes, is best is by Robin Kirkpatrick. It's the Penguin Classics edition. There are a few reasons why I think this is a good choice. The main one is that this translation strikes a good balance between uh, faithfulness to the original Italian and readability. So we can trust that the translator isn't taking too many liberties, but it's also, highly readable, and it is in one single volume. There are many scholarly translations that have lots of very good notes and are much more, perhaps a bit more literally, at least, translated. But I think for those who are reading this for the first time, this is a very, very good place to start. And there are very good notes in this edition as well. Sometimes we need a little bit of help to if we don't quite remember who this mythological character is or this figure from Florentine history. So it's good to have a have at least some help along those lines as well. I think one of the main reasons why we should read Dante is that it's a book that helps us examine what it might mean to lead a good life. Dante, from the very beginning, suggests that this is why he wrote it, because he had a certain crisis at a certain point in his life, is something that all of us have at one point or another. But the other reason is that this work, in its combination of the classical and Christian traditions, really is a way of thinking through these two aspects of the Western tradition. It's a guide to figuring out this tension between the two aspects, Athens and Jerusalem, we could say, but also possible ways of harmonizing them. I think too. There is a certain harmony that Dante achieves. Whether that harmony kind of goes to the root of these two aspects is another question. But yes, it's a work that transcends very much its time and place, and I think is of interest to anyone who is curious about what it means to live a good life in any time and place.